what in the world is going on in the mortgage world? There were headlines recently about a bank collapse, plus what is actually happening inside the Nashville mortgage world. What do rates look like? There's so much happening. And yes, I am all in the real estate side of things, but the mortgage world, even though it works hand in hand with us, it is its own world as well. And so as I was trying to search and figure out what can I do to bring the most value and education to my people, I realized that I should just do collaborations with each of my preferred lenders, talking about various things in the mortgage world to hopefully bring you some content that is really helpful. So over the next several weeks, I am going to be rolling out a series of videos with each of my different lending partners, and we're gonna be talking about different aspects of what's going on. And so in today's video, I'm gonna be talking with Halston Warren. Now, this is one of our preferred lenders, and he loves working with first-time home buyers. And we really got to talking, and I remember when I first bought my first place, there was truly so much about the real estate world that I didn't know. And here's the thing, us real estate agents can be really terrible when it comes to actually best explaining things to people. You know, we're constantly saying things like real estate builds wealth and the cost of waiting and don't rent, you're paying somebody else's mortgage. Like, we're so guilty of saying things like that. But Halston and I sat down, we had this great conversation in terms of what we want our first-time home buyers to know. What does it actually mean to build wealth? What's an example of that? What's the cost of waiting? And so he and I sat down, we talked a lot about it. You're going to hear the full conversation next. But if this is you, if you're interested in learning more about buying for the first time in Nashville, both of our contact information is going to be down below. I really hope that you enjoy this conversation and you learned something from it. If you enjoyed it, of course, please share it, like it, leave a comment below. So without further ado, this is my conversation with Halston Warren.
Joining me today is Halston Warren with New American Funding. And as we were talking before we jumped on the video, we were saying, you know, because you've been in the business a little while now, killing it, doing a great job, but you were talking about that you really have a passion for first-time home buyers. And so as our market has evolved and changed, you know, because first-time home buyers 2 years ago, I mean, they were in a dog-eat-dog fight just with the way the market was going. But now there's opportunity there. And so I would just love to talk about first your passion for first-time home buyers and what you are really passionate about making sure they know when it comes to, you know, both the lending and just purchasing real estate.
Right, exactly. I feel like, you know, I came from an accounting background, and so I wasn't, you know, on the lender side of things, and I feel like, you know, a lot of first-time homebuyers, they're a little bit timid and a little bit scared about what they could afford, what is the process about, you know, if they can't get it pre-approved, what's going to happen. And I want to make them feel comfortable. So, you know, being able to help someone as a first-time buyer, especially someone who maybe comes to me and is not pre-approved right off the jump, sure, and coach them along and give them some steps to take to get to that end goal of buying a home. That is, I mean, it's the greatest feeling of all time. Like when you close on a home, when someone closes on a home, especially a family too, it's, you know, there's no way to describe it. It's awesome. And that's probably my favorite part of my job is, you know, coaching you through the process, getting you to that goal of buying a home and, you know, going from there. So,
well,
yeah.
So let's talk about the coaching piece of it a little bit, because I always like to explain to people, you know, I mean, I know that feeling of walking a first-time home buyer through the process and just how excited they are, you know, on closing day. And it's really exciting. But I always think back to my experience several years ago when I bought my first place. You know, for me, it was like, I wanted to be able to say I bought a place, and I wasn't thinking about the bigger picture and how real estate fits into that. And so you were saying that you love to coach first-time home buyers through. So kind of walk me through, you know, what kind of your spiel is, I guess.
Right. Well, so most of them come to me and they're like, I just don't know about credit, I don't know about income, and I'm just worried. I don't have any money for a down payment. That's the number one. I don't have money for a down payment. And if you are comfortable paying a high dollar amount of rent per month, you should not be uncomfortable finding out what you can do as far as purchasing real estate.
Absolutely.
That is my number one thing right there. It's insane the amount of rent costs that are going on, especially in our area, Middle Tennessee, Nashville area. If you can afford that, and there's wild scenarios where not everyone's in the same case, of course, but if you can afford it, it makes so much sense to buy versus rent. Doesn't matter what the interest rate is, doesn't matter what the current market's doing, it doesn't matter. So if buying versus renting is always a positive. So my first thing is with talking to a first-time home buyer is, let's fill out an application. Let's take a look where you're currently at. And a lot of times they think, well, I'm not going to get pre-approved and I don't want to deal with it. I'm like, I'm not going to just send you a denial letter and that be it. I want to help you get into the home that you're dreaming of. I want to help you build wealth, and I want to help your real estate agent help you find the home. So everyone can get into a home. It's just a matter of knowing what you got to do, taking those steps, and just accomplishing those goals. So I say you fill out an application, I take a look. A lot of times people are in a lot better position than they think they are.
Yeah.
With credit.
Power.
Exactly. A lot of times their credit is a little bit better than they thought. They can afford a little bit more than they thought. But sometimes that doesn't work out, and that's fine. So best case scenario, you fill out an application, I get you pre-approved, I send you some numbers and show you what a $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 purchase looks like as far as monthly payment, and a pre-approval letter for an agent like you, obviously, and you're good to go. Worst case scenario, you have a couple things you can work on, and a lot of people, they do come to me and they have talked with other people and they just kind of got ghosted a little bit.
Yep.
If you come to me and I run your credit, or if I look at your file and you have a year's worth of work to do of paying off some things, working on that credit, maybe some employment history, I'm gonna tell you what those things are, so that in a year's time you're ready to go. Exactly. Yeah.
Right. So it's all about educating, so, yes. And I know that a lot of times I feel like realtors can be guilty of saying like, real estate builds wealth. And I don't know, again, I think back to my own personal experience, and I always try and draw from that and figure out, okay, what educational pieces did I feel like I was missing, and how can we better explain it, right? Because everyone says build wealth, build wealth, build wealth.
Right.
But at least, one thing that I know that I try to walk people through is saying like, because you're right, if you can't afford X rent per month, that oftentimes can translate to a certain purchase price. Or, I know that y'all are able to go in and say, okay, well, you may be paying rent here. Where are you comfortable monthly? And then that can help determine what the budget looks like. But it's saying like, okay, say these first-time home buyers are in a property 2-3 years, and then there's a life change. They get married or they move on somehow, right? That precipitates a change. Well, when they go to sell, obviously, I say obviously because I know it, but what they may not know is you're building that equity that we've kind of mentioned. And so you may purchase it for here, but come time, if you're going to sell, or maybe you choose to rent it out and use it as investment, the value is then sitting up here. And normally this gap here that's part of that building wealth, right? Like, and I tell people, I'm like, for you to build the equity that you have in your home, for you to build that off of trying to save from your job, the amount of equity, especially in the Middle Tennessee area, right? Because
absolutely.
Even though our market has started to stabilize, we're still seeing appreciation. So it's going to be a lot more challenging unless you get some amazing raise and you're just saving. It's going to be hard to match what you can save, just saving your income to match what you can build in equity in a short time in the Nashville market.
Yeah, I agree 100% with everything you said. I mean, I feel like we're very blessed to live and work in the Middle Tennessee area, 100%. I mean, I thank God that I grew up in this area because it is so good. It's so good. There's so much to do. There's so much, out there, city life, there's rural life. We have USDA loans within, an hour drive of Nashville. Like, it's insane. So there's so many different options that people have. So yeah, I completely agree. And I think, buying right now, it may look bad as far as monthly payment goes compared to what you're currently paying.
Sure.
But you are building wealth for your future. A few days ago, I put a presentation together for a buyer of mine, a potential buyer of mine. She was a first-time home buyer. She was paying just a little under $2,000 a month in rent. She was paying $1,950 a month in rent, and I pre-approved her. She could do everything and felt comfortable with the payment. I pre-approved her for a $400,000 purchase with a 3% down payment, conventional loan. And her credit was good, her income was good, and so that's where she stood. She wanted to be about that $400K range, and so she found a home she liked. I sent her an estimate, and I sent her the numbers, and she was a little bit taken aback. She was like, this is, I think it was like $700-800 more than her monthly rent.
Yep.
And she was scared, and it shocked her a little bit. And I completely understood that. And she could have gone lower in purchase price. That's at a different scenario. But I just let her know, I don't want you to just give up on it right now and just continue to rent, because the cost of waiting is insane. The amount of money that you are losing if you can buy, and it makes sense. And like we talked about, it's not for everybody right now. Some people have work to do. Some people might be considering a job change or moving states. I get that. But if you can buy and you are comfortable with the payment, it's insane to continue to pay rent. So that was my big thing with her. And so I put together a scenario for her, and I use this mortgage coach tool that a lot of lenders use it. And I sent her a few scenarios. I sent her, if you continue to rent at $1,950 a month for 2 years, or if you bought a $400,000 house with a 3% down payment, which is very low, and she could definitely do it as a first-time home buyer. It was like, it was insane, the amount of money. So she would have paid, like, I want to say, and I should have had this pulled up, and I apologize, but I can send you the link actually, and you can put this in the description. Anyone can look at it, and I can actually adjust the numbers for anyone's situation as far as rent, what you want to buy, whatever. But anyways, she was paying like $47,000 a year, or $47,000 in 2 years towards rent. So $47K out the door. You're not getting anything.
And it doesn't come back, because that's the thing with rent. You pay it. The only benefit you get is that you have a roof over your head, which is great. Exactly. But if you put, that money towards a down payment, and one thing that you said, because if someone's listening to this and they're like, oh my God, I can't do another like $700 or $800 on top of like what I'm paying. That's just a certain scenario, right? Like, say somebody was like, hey, I could maybe swing another 100, 200, 300. Well, of course that'll change what they're approved for, right? Like, you can keep it well within their means so they're not house poor.
Exactly.
But
100%.
if somebody has that capability and it's still well within their financial means, you're right, getting a house, because then they're going to build equity, and the money that goes to the monthly mortgage,
Yes.
again,
Yep.
it goes towards something that they own, and that's continuing to appreciate in value.
Absolutely. I mean, rent, historically rent, it increases maybe, 1.5%, 2% a year, probably somewhere around in there. You probably know better than me, but that's probably around where that is. The home appreciation value historically is going to be right around 4%. And that's historically, and that's very conservative.
Absolutely.
Because, obviously we need to take account for how crazy the market has been the last few years. And I get that. But historically, for 30 years back, like 4% is a pretty conservative number, right? Would you agree? So,
in the peak of the market, we were seeing 4% appreciation a month.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So for my estimate that I sent this particular client, like I didn't want to overestimate or anything like that. I wanted to be as conservative as possible. So I only sent her just a 4% increase in value. And with that $47,000 in rent that she spent, she could have had $54,000 in equity in 2 years.
Which is crazy.
She would have waited 2 years. And I think that is insane. That's crazy. So it's like, if you can do it, and I get it, not everyone's in the same boat, but if you can do it, you set yourself up for building wealth. And that's my thing. I want you to build wealth for your family, for you, for your future, whatever. So like, you, and a lot of people, I think also, they think, well, I can't afford right now, if the rates are high, I can't afford a $500,000 home. Well, lower your expectations just a tad. Are you renting a 2-bedroom, condo or something like that? Then buy a condo, buy a smaller townhome on the outskirts of Nashville or something like that. That is such a great way to build wealth and get that equity.
Well, and so we're talking about this building wealth piece, right? So one way that I like to tell people is, right, say you're going to be in it 5 years or so, 3 years, but you've built that equity, even in that 2-year estimate, right? If this person in this scenario wanted to then sell, they're looking at a profit already. Like how likely is it that they can save, that amount from working in 2 years? So it's either they could at that point, even if it's 2 years, if it's 5 years, that builds on itself, but they could sell it, cash that out, and then take that and roll that money into the next property. Because I think a lot of times, people can be like, well, I want like the perfect first house.
Right.
And it's to me, like, I mean, I'm not saying by any means for people to just take a terrible property.
Right.
It doesn't have to be perfect at first. It can get your foot in the door, help you build that wealth. So maybe the next purchase, or maybe the purchase after that,
right,
is getting you much closer to that true dream home. Or, maybe they don't want to sell it right away. Maybe they move on, but then they can use it as income, renting it out every month, which would probably, be able, with rental rates, be able to rent out for more than what the monthly expenses are on the home.
Right.
So they have another stream of income, which again is not, you can go out and get a second job, it's fine, or there is always that opportunity too. So, I mean, I completely agree with you. And one thing that you mentioned earlier that I really wanted us to touch on, because I think it's so important, especially right now, whether it's a first-time home buyer or whether, maybe it's like a first-time seller, considering all of these things, right? Is the cost of waiting.
Mm-hmm.
And so what that looks like, the cost of waiting. And I know, I just feel like sometimes people will can have this opinion of like us and our businesses. They'll be like, they just want to make money and get people in houses, right? But there actually is a cost associated with waiting, because fear can stop people and whatever it may be. But I would love for us to actually go back and touch on just, cost of waiting, and if you could explain that a little bit more.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's pretty much in line with kind of the lady's situation that I was just talking about. I mean, she was considering just continuing to rent. And I understand, some people want to rent for certain things, like, you don't have to worry about home expenses and your landscape is taken care of, and that's fine.
Oh yeah, if something breaks, somebody else takes care of it.
100%. Yeah, I get that. I don't want to deal with that either. And but that's something like, you don't want to just throw that money out. So start building wealth by, like we mentioned earlier, like maybe a townhouse is your best route. Maybe a condo is your best route. There's other options out there for you to be able to let your money really work for itself. Like, you want to talk about building, interest and equity and wealth. And real estate is where it's at. Historically, like, you're not going to beat it. That is the number one investment strategy, is real estate, especially in our market and where we work. And like I said, we're completely blessed to be here, and that's a great thing. So for me personally, I was an accountant, 8-9 years ago, and I bought my first home, and I just kind of randomly fell into it. And then some real estate agent had contacted me that I knew, and so I started looking, and I couldn't afford anything in the Nashville area because I wanted to be in Nashville. I grew up in Columbia, the Spring Hill area of Tennessee, and I wanted to be closer to the city life and get out there, and so I couldn't afford anything really that I wanted at the time. But I was like, you know what? I found a townhouse that I liked, and I dropped on it. I love the dog, by the way.
Let's say hi.
Yeah, what's up? But no. So I bought the townhouse, and it immediately skyrocketed. In value, and not just timing wise. Like, real estate is always historically going to go up. Yes. You're going to be okay. That's what I tell a lot of people that are nervous. When I've got people who are pre-approved, they're under contract, they're about to buy the home, and they're like getting nervous about buying, and they want to go back to where their apartment. And I'm like, you're going to be okay. You are going to make so much money off this purchase. It's fine. 9 times out of 10, the real estate is going to go up in value. You're going to be fine with the combined factor of your down payment towards the principal, the increase in value, the home's increasing in value every year, and your monthly payments. A little bit of that is going towards principal. Throw, lower interest rates in the future on top of that, and you're going to have a nice chunk of change in real estate. And if you buy, maybe you buy a smaller house or a townhouse or condo. Yep. You take that, you have options. Now, before you didn't have anything. Now you have options. Maybe you keep it and rent it out and get some rental income. Yep. Maybe you sell it and use that money for a 20% down payment on a new home. You have so many things that you can do now. Whereas if you rented, you're just kind of throwing it away and you're not doing anything.
Exactly. That money doesn't ever come back to you. That's somebody else's investment.
Right.
Granted, you got the apartment complexes, but still, even if you're renting from a landlord, that's covering their mortgage and more. That's building their income stream. And one thing that, like, knowing what I know now, I look back and I'm like, man, I wish I could have. I think I was like 26 when I bought my first place. I was like, if I could tell myself, like, if I had the real estate savvy, if somebody had actually sat down with me and been like, look at these various options, right? I was actually doing research just yesterday, going back and looking at what some houses in an area cost, and because I had bought a townhome kind of on the east side of Nashville, like in the Hermitage area, and now I'm like, but looking at houses in Franklin, I'm like, a year after I bought my townhome, like looking at the cost of a single family cute home in Franklin, I'm like, I could have afforded it back then. And then to know what you'd be sitting on now in Franklin, like, oh my gosh. Or even the possibility of if somebody has the ability to afford a duplex.
Right.
One side, rent the other side out. You know, there's so many different avenues. It's not just a singular, like, oh, people say I should buy a house, so I'll buy a house. Like, there's so much to it. And I think there's some statistic out there that like 90% of millionaires are millionaires through real estate. So
yeah, I believe it. Yeah.
You know, it's just kind of crazy. And I think, you know, as we've been talking about the rates and everything, you know, saying that people, like those people that you're working with that are getting close to closing, you know, are worried about the market. I mean, just tell me, what are you seeing in the market right now? And do you have any, now granted, nobody has a crystal ball and we're not gonna hold your feet to the fire if your predictions don't come true, but just kind of what are you seeing and what are you thinking is gonna happen as we move through 2023?
Yeah, I mean, rates are in the mid-6 range. They're in the 6.5 range right now, and they have been for a little bit. You know, they've kind of been up and down a little bit. You know, I thought a few weeks ago we were really right on the cusp of getting back into the 5s, and everyone was really excited, and then just kind of got back up. So it's so tough to know for sure. But for the past few weeks, like I said, we've been in the mid-6s. I think, and a lot of experts think, you know, before the end of the year, I'm thinking maybe into the summer, we start to see the 5s again, which is awesome, which is so good. I mean, compared to, I get it, we're not in the 2s anymore, and that's done. I
don't know if we'll ever see it again.
Right. I really don't think we will. And I hope we don't, because if we do, that means something crazy happens, like COVID or whatever. So let's not even hope for the 2s anymore. But I think, you know, rates are going to go up and down no matter what. The number one thing you should focus on, no matter what, do you feel comfortable with the monthly payment? Do you feel comfortable that you can make this monthly payment? Are you okay with that? And if you are, a little bit of your monthly payment is going towards principal, and you have an asset now.
You do.
So that's the bottom line right there. And you know, compared to rent, it's a no-brainer for sure.
Right, because you know, one thing that I think about, and you know, when you say the word asset is, you know, say that you've been in the place for a while and for whatever reason, the bottom just falls out in a financial way, in whatever kind of situation it may be, right? Mm-hmm. Having that asset, if you're renting, you don't have an asset. Whereas with a home, if, you know, God forbid something happened, mm-hmm. there is the potential to sell and be able, and then you do have that cash from the sale of the home. So, I mean, you know, but again, renting, you don't really have that nest egg that's sitting there that you can really do something with, you know, in terms of an asset at least, you know. And again, you never want to have to go that route, but you know, it's almost like you can kind of think of the asset, the house, the property as a savings account in a way.
It's an insurance policy is what it is. I mean, you are covered should, God forbid, something crazy happen.
Yeah.
You know, you lose your job, you don't have any money, like, and something bad happens, like that's going to build you way more income through equity and wealth than, you know, just kind of putting away some money while you're renting. And all of this to say, like I said, it's not for everybody. I know some people,
there's different situations,
right.
But
you're
if
changing jobs, moving states, yeah, exactly.
If you have the means and your situation is lining up to where you're going to be here for at least a few years, if not longer, it's a great option.
100%.
Absolutely. Well, Halston, thank you so much. I feel like that was a great conversation, and I hope that people feel like they got education and value out of it. But, you know, talking about hearing that the 5s could come back, that's something that I've started to hear. I'm actually really excited because in May, I'm going to be going to a Nashnomics conference with Lawrence Young, the chief economist for the National Association of Realtors. He's going to talk more about the Nashville economy in particular, which one other thing I wanted to make sure that we kind of hit on was, you know, a lot of times, you know, especially first-time home buyers, like maybe their parents went through a really rough time back in 2008. you know, and a lot of people were actually underwater in their homes.
Right.
And so I know that that can scare a lot of people, but at least with the way the Nashville market has been moving, I'd have to check for the other counties, but at least Williamson County right now, the last time I looked, only 1.9% of homeowners were actually underwater in terms of their equity. So that's meaning that basically 98% have equity and more. And just the way that people continue to move here, we still do not have enough supply to meet the demand.
Right.
You know, we're still on an upward trajectory in terms of equity wise, just overall.
100%, 100%. All of that you said sounds accurate. I mean, as far as those stats go, I mean, like I've said a couple of times, like we are very blessed to be in this area. You know, no matter what other things are going on in the country, I feel like Middle Tennessee is gonna grow.
Yep.
It's just going to.
Yep.
And, you know, there's so many people. And even with the last 6 months, you know, it's kind of shifted a little bit towards a buyer's market a little bit. And, you know, people are getting homes under or at list price and sellers are paying concessions again. But we're
Fair
still
negotiations are back.
Exactly. So people have options now. So it's good for buyers, but we're also at a very low inventory level. You know, those higher rates have kind of deterred a lot of buyers. So for people who are, my kind of last thought on that point is, for people who are kind of waiting for either the market to cool off or the rates to go down. That's the number one thing I hear. I'm sure that's probably your number one thing. I'm gonna wait till the rates drop. I'm gonna wait till the market cools. It's not gonna happen. It's not, because when rates go up, you know, like they are now, it's that you have a little bit of extra buying power with the seller. You can negotiate a little more, but your rate is high, so your payment's high. And then when rates drop, especially in a low inventory market right now, you're going to be in that same position with a flood of buyers coming in, and we're going to be back in that position of, you know, multiple offer situations.
Wild market.
Yeah, we're going to be right back there. And you know what? I think we're on the way. I think, you know, here recently, you know, way more than me.
Some multiple
You're headed back that way.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
Awesome. Well, that was a great talk, Halston. Thank you so much. I will take what you had talked about, put it in the description below so that anyone can grab it along with your contact information. But yeah, I hope this was helpful.
So I really hope you enjoyed that conversation. You know, one thing that I did want to mention before we close out here is, yes, Nashville continues to grow, which means home prices are going up, which means really getting in that entry level price point where a lot of first time home buyers purchase. It is becoming more of a challenge, but please do not let that deter you, because there are certainly options out there for you, and we can talk through each one of those. There's a lot that goes into it, but again, if you want to be a homeowner, if you are inspired by this conversation, I'd love to talk to you and be able to walk you through what your various options look like, so that hopefully together we can help you reach that dream of home ownership. Again, all of my contact information is below, along with Halstead's. My name is Caitlin Martin. I'll see you next time.